the Front Door Church podcast. My name is Dave Shrine, and I am here with my co-host, Justin Trepp. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, it's good to be here. Episode 2.
Most podcasts don't make it past, I think, 8 episodes.
Wow.
But we've already got over 10 planned, so we're good.
Planning is just as good as recording.
Yeah, right? It's just as much fun.
It's like the Dumb and Dumber episode where he's like, I owe you $255,000. Might want to hold on to that one.
That one's a keeper.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Today, we're going to be talking all about Facebook ads. And for pastors, if you have experience with Facebook ads and your experiences were less than favorable, then I want to let you know you're in the right place. My first Facebook ad campaign that I ever ran, I was listening to people saying, oh man, I'm getting conversions. And really all that means is whatever I set out to do, the result happened. Yeah. And so I was trying to get email addresses. And so folks were like, I'm getting conversions at like $1 a conversion, $2 a conversion. And then I look at what my campaign was doing, and it was early on into my Facebook ads career. And my conversions were like $6 or $7. I was like, man, this is not working for me. This is not, everybody else is getting better conversion rates than I am. And these just aren't working. And I would imagine that's the way a lot of people feel when they run their first Facebook ads campaign. Do you remember, have you run Facebook ads? You have run Facebook ads campaigns.
Oh yeah. In the early days of Ministry Pass, which Ministry Pass is a company I launched in 2014, I was the marketing department and I was running lots of Facebook ads, split testing. I love, getting in the Facebook ads lab and working through that stuff. And yeah, I had a lot of ads that were successful and a lot of ads that were, $17.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, turn that off fast.
I think one of the things is that I've learned is you're not going to get the result that you want the first time out. And it's the reps, just like with your preaching, just like with your small group leading, just like with your sermon prep, the more amount of reps that you get, the easier it becomes, but the more insight you have into what you're actually doing, which is part of what makes it easier. And Facebook ads, any social ads are the same. The more reps you have, the more you discover what works, what doesn't. And for the pastors who feel like Facebook ads haven't worked for me, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that the problem is you. If they didn't work for you, you're the problem. The bad news is that you're the problem. So
there it is.
If you could have made them better, you would have made them better.
We'll see you later, folks.
We'll see you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Front Door Church Podcast.
Yeah.
So good news, bad news is you're the problem. And in this episode, we want to help you overcome some of the common mistakes that people have with Facebook ads so that you can actually leverage them and turn those ads into, number one, more visitors through your front door. And number two, more people who engage with the programs that you're running or the invitations that you have out there, more registrations. So I think one of the things that I've seen as a result of Facebook ads that have not gone well is churches kind of, they have this paradigm. Should I do Facebook ads or should I do a mailer? What are some of the other options that you see? I mean, I think that's kind of the main thing.
Yeah. Some churches I've seen try their hand at Google AdWords. And some has worked well, some haven't. But I think the easiest path to church marketing is largely Facebook ads, right?
Yeah, it's the easiest. It's the most accessible. They've made it really easy to boost a post, and they've made it really easy outside of any type of ads manager that they've built to be able to define an audience criteria. And so
they've made it easy to waste the money too.
So hopefully you will walk away from this episode with some insights on how to not waste money.
I was going to say, have you ever experienced where you're on Facebook and you just like in there, I would say a few years ago, it's been a few years. So hopefully we've all improved, right, in our Facebook marketing prowess. But I've seen a few churches near Easter, specifically near Easter, even this year, where I just see a random advertisement for some church in I'm in Houston. It's like Idaho. And it's like, hey, attend our Easter service. I'm like, why am I seeing this ad? There's a zip code parameter, ladies and gentlemen.
There is a bookkeeper in the church, a financial person in the church weeping somewhere.
Oh man.
We want to make sure that you don't have that problem. And while we're not going to get as technical and into the weeds as we could, the overarching idea is how to make Facebook ads work for your church and to give you some insights on things you can start to try. This is the Front Door Church podcast. We have a website, frontdoorchurch.com, where you can go and you can send any types of follow-up questions that you have. So just know that as we go through the process, you're not alone in trying to navigate this and pull off some high converting ads. Like, we're here to help, and we'll do everything that we can to make that help. So like I said, I think we'll see church leaders dabble into Facebook ads a little bit, and they're weighing, I'm not opposed to spending money. We usually do a mailer each year. We'll spend, $5,000, $10,000 on a mailer. I keep hearing people telling me that maybe we should invest that in Facebook ads, but I just really feel like we don't get a return. We don't know what happens there. But with a mailer, I'll have one or two people come in and show that mailer to me, and I've got a visitor. It produced a visitor.
Well, if you got one or two for 5,000, I'd say you're doing it wrong. and to be honest, there's not really an easy way. Besides that, besides someone walking up because they saved the mailer, right?
Yeah.
They didn't throw it away in the trash. There's probably some people that may come to your Easter service that got the mailer that didn't hand it to you. I will admit that, but there's no way to really track the mailers beyond that. I mean, you can get there with some gymnastics a little bit, but I think Facebook ads, if you set up some clear targets and some intentionality in your follow up with the people that interact with those Facebook ads, you can measure with some level of confidence, I think, that you're going to be happy with.
So what we need to establish first and foremost is that people are not going to Facebook to find churches. Largely, people are not going to Facebook to search for anything other than to just see what's in their feed. And this is pretty true for just about every social network that's out there. I think Pinterest is a little bit different. People are going there uniquely to search for something, and they're looking for a specific something. But on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, it's just this constant scroll, and occasionally you'll tap on a hashtag to see what other people are saying about this.
A good friend of mine, Josh Rhodes, he's really great at Facebook ads, and he told me, he said, people actually go to Google and look for things. And so that's why Google AdWords costs more than Facebook, because it's almost a qualified lead. It's someone who's looking for a church in Spring, Texas, right? Churches in Spring, Texas. That's a search. So if your church is doing Google AdWords, yes, it's going to cost more than Facebook, but they're looking, they're ready. With Facebook, he said it's this sort of search and destroy method where you're just trying to interrupt their day with something that causes them to stop scrolling and to look at your ad and interact with it. And so, it's cheaper, but it's a different philosophy, or it's a different strategy altogether. And of course, they're different platforms. So you're right. No one gets on Facebook going, man, I just haven't seen a really good church ad lately. I feel incomplete today.
It's what you said. It's interrupt. The ads inside of Facebook, no matter what your take is on how you use Facebook and what value you find in it, the ads are disruptive. The ads do interrupt your flow. And if you like that, that's great. If you just ignore them, well, that's the way a lot of people use it. I like to think of, when you're on the side of planning things, it's easy to, number one, overcomplicate things. And it's easy to overestimate other people's behaviors are like your own. You think, well, they use Facebook the way I use Facebook. And it's not true. One of the things that I'll do is I'll monitor how my wife uses social media, like not in like a creepy, who are you talking to way, but like I'll just watch how she's scrolling through, and I'll see, what does she stop on? And I'll ask her, what is that? Is that an ad? Who is that? What are you watching? And she'll give me insights into how other people use social media.
Have you ever picked up your spouse's or a good friend's phone and scrolled through their feed? It's like a foreign land.
It is. It's completely different than what you're used to. And it's a really valuable lesson to realize, okay, not everybody uses social media like I do. This is going to be a disruptive experience. If somebody is accustomed to just scrolling through ads, what do we need to change in order to compel them to care? And that really comes back to something that I'll talk a lot about in different communication strategies, is like, nobody gives a rip about your church what you're doing this weekend. Nobody cares about your Wednesday night programming. The only people who are bought into that are the people who have already made the decision to go there, and they already have the information that they need. So going into Facebook ads with the mentality of we're going to promote our Sunday service, or with the mentality of we're going to tell people about our camp coming up, or we have a marriage conference. Yes, it might appeal to some people, but on the base level, if you go at it with a me-centric attitude, we're excited about this thing, so you should be too. Nobody cares about what it is you have coming up, and that's the most powerful position to be in.
Most people don't think about anybody else but themselves, and I don't mean that in a conscious level. It's a subconscious thing, right? Where if you're advertising, hey, our service is great, it's not really, when they see that, they're not seeing themselves in that service. So what you have to do with your ads, you have to speak to them. You have to speak to their needs. Everyone's different. Maybe you have an ad that is focused on divorce recovery in your particular zip code, right? Because there's many people in your particular zip code that your church addresses that they're going through divorce, or have been going through a divorce, or just recently got a divorce. Now, if they're scrolling through Facebook and they see something that addresses them, hey, have you been recently divorced and kind of still trying to find your way? Now you have their attention a little bit. That's very different than them just seeing your service times. It's two different worlds, and one will be much more effective than the other.
So even in that little example, the idea here is you want to make a pivot, just like in our previous episode talking about the church website and that homepage being me focused rather than visitor focused. And again, this is not a seeker sensitive versus, Bible preaching,
gospel fluency.
It's just common sense.
Yeah.
It's the same behavior that you would have if somebody were to walk through your front door and you were to entertain and host them for a couple hours. This is the same behavior. So we're not trying to bring up a discussion of, water down the gospel and, get people in, seeker sensitive, false pretense. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Don't come at them with things that they don't value, what they don't care about. Come at them with something that's highly relevant.
One of the best ads I've ever seen for a church that actually marketed their services, did it in a way, they did it exactly what you're saying. They said, and it's called The Loft here locally. They are an eclectic, I would say, body. It's a large Methodist church, and they have actually these autonomous congregations on one campus. So they all share the same amenities. So they have a classical, you have a more contemporary, and then you have The Loft, which is this real eclectic, vibey service and culture there. And so they ran ads locally in the outdoor Market Street area here, the shopping mall. And they had these little ads everywhere. And it said, "Are you rethinking church? ? So are we." And of course, that fits The Loft,
right? Totally.
But it does it in a way that addresses the person first and like where they're at with church. And it's like, oh yeah, I thought it was such a great, like, hey, if you're gonna market your services, do it in a way that actually acknowledges the viewer first and where they're at, before just saying, hey, join us Sunday, 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Excuse me. 10 p.m. That's a late service.
That's
10 a.m.
That's the midnight service.
Yeah.
Midnight
cry.
What that speaks to me is that there was a conversation that happened at some point in time, rather than just showing up, creating a post, boosting it, or loading up the ads manager and adding text. There was a conversation that happened. Yeah. What do we want to say? How do we want to connect? And if there wasn't a conversation that happened specifically around Facebook ads, then that ad was birthed out of a larger conversation. So going into your Facebook ads, just saying, the easiest thing for us to promote is our service, and having zero conversation around it, I think you're setting yourself up for failure in that. So having a conversation, okay, how are we going to, this phrase, add value? How are we going to make it all about the person who is going to be looking at this ad? And I have an example that I think I wish I would have been running church Facebook ads at this time, because it would have gone over well. When we go back to March of 2020, April of 2020, and we look at how the entire world shut down, I remember the biggest struggle, most difficult thing for me was not working from home. I had been accustomed to working from home. It wasn't, grocery store, everything shutting down and only grocery stores being open. The most difficult thing for me was our kids not being home, but our kids being home in this expectation that now we have to facilitate their education. And that was a very big struggle because all of a sudden you transition from parent, which there's a whole lot of dynamics there,
Sure.
to parent teacher, which it just muddies those waters and it throws everything together. And I think everybody was frustrated within that. Well, what I think would have been a great Facebook ad would have been for a church to say, you know what, we're going to hop on Zoom. We're going to run ads and say Wednesday night at 6 p.m., we're bringing in 3 teachers who are a part of our congregation who are going through this same situation. And we are going to host an event for an hour, helping parents understand how they can facilitate the day, organize the day in such a way that's conducive to education, and let teachers be the ones to share. Here's ways we get through the day in a normal environment. Here are ways that you can take it and apply it to yours. And all of a sudden you've got teachers in your church communicating on your behalf, and you're running Facebook ads pointing people to your church, even though it's for something other than one of your services, yet you're forming a relationship and you're adding value to their situation.
Yeah. So we run ads a lot, and sometimes we'll get commenters. Often we'll get commenters, and the response is we'll offer like a free resource for Ministry Pass, and they'll just say, just preach the gospel. And I feel like a lot of pastors have this philosophy, right? I'm just going to preach the gospel. So we're just going to promote our services. We're just going to boost our stream. And I would like us, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to church communications, don't just preach the gospel, be the gospel. And one of the ways that you can be the gospel is adding value to people, like you're saying, beyond the context of a worship service. Yes, we want them to get to a worship service, but a lot of times, most times, it doesn't start there when it comes to Facebook ads.
So the COVID example with teachers, one of the things you had mentioned was something I thought completely off the wall, but 100% relevant to the area and would be right in line with churches' top 10 things to do.
Yeah, create a resource for your community. So let's say you live in Boise, Idaho. Gosh, I wish I knew like a
shout out to Boise, Idaho peeps.
Yeah, I wish I knew like a suburb out in Boise. But little
Boise.
Yeah, little Boise, northern Idaho. And you create a resource, and it's top 10 things to do with your family in Boise, Idaho. You create that resource, then you run Facebook ads to it, and you're targeting really people in your zip code, not all of Boise. Maybe you're on the north side, so not southern Boise. I mean, we don't associate with the southern Boise people, but and you're adding value. Now you've enabled a family to go do 10 different activities, and your church sponsored this community guide, so to speak. And you're like, well, that's not spiritual. Well, you've added a lot of value to them. You've become a sponsor, and let's say a family downloads the guide and they do all 10, and they're like, man, that was so much fun. Well, your church enabled that bonding, that fellowship. And perhaps they might not go to your church service right away. Maybe they attend another service, but when they are ready to attend a service, or maybe this next Easter comes up and like, hey, where do we want to go to church? It's like, we're that one church that created that guide. Sometimes marketing is about a short game, but a lot of times marketing is about a long game. And so that's one example that you could utilize.
A final example is something that I did during my last year of vocational ministry. And so it was my final year, and I left the church to start my own business that fall or that summer. So I didn't get to make it around to the fall and the winter, but this was one of the things that I had planned. In Arizona, well, I guess they do Christmas lights everywhere. They also do them in Arizona. And so I had become pretty familiar with some of the best Christmas light areas in the East Valley. We call it the East Valley. So we don't associate with the West Valley. That's how it goes.
Gotcha, okay.
So no, West Valley people, you're cool. So East Valley's better.
East Valley, I know you're treating me right. West Coast.
So I went around and I went to all of the different newspaper websites. I searched on Facebook, although you said a lot of people don't search Facebook. Well, I searched Facebook for Christmas light events happening in the area, and I created a list of the best Christmas light displays to go look at around the East Valley. And my plan had been, which I used some of them that current year and just posted it out on Facebook, but my plan had been to the following November, December to release a single guide that was all about the area, that had a little note to our church in the lower right-hand corner, and to put that out on Facebook, not even necessarily trying to get an email address or anything, but just release it on Facebook as an ad and put money behind it. But it was one of these deals where it was relevant to the entire community. It was something that I knew people would find value in because I couldn't find a good list anywhere. They were hard to navigate. They didn't have a good map. I was like, I can do a better job than this. And it would have really reached people where they at. It would have drawn them back to our website, even if to just get the download. And then there's all sorts of other things that we could have done with the traffic that came. But that was just another example of how are you adding value. The last one, you were talking about something like a 25-inch snow or 25-inch massive snow hill. No, a 25-foot snow hill. I don't remember what the context was though.
When you're doing Facebook ads, you can do resources, you can do events, you can do all different types of ads. One of the most successful ads that I ran was an event-based ad. It was near Christmas time, and we were in the north side of Houston. The north side of Houston gets snow, once every 5 years?
You're looking at me like I know. You're the one who lives here.
I mean, it's not very much, right? And it's like sprinkles. It's snow dust. It melts like as soon as it hits the ground from the heat, right, of Houston. Well, we advertised an event where this company that we hired was going to bring in snow, and it's artificial snow, but it's 25 feet long and it's massive, and it's a giant snow hill, and people could do sleds in Houston. So I did an ad. It was like 25-foot snow hill in Spring, Texas.
That's some clickbait right there.
Man, yeah, because the picture was amazing too. I used one of their example photos, and I got thousands of shares, thousands of comments, people driving from South Houston, which South Houston is a long ways from North Houston. It is like, at least an hour and a half drive, and people were coming from all over. And I got so many comments. The church got so many calls, and it's because it was unique, right? It was something that caused them to pause while they're scrolling. It's like, what? A giant snow hill in Spring, Texas. What is this? That's a lot different than just promoting a service stream. I guess that's my point. It's unique. It's different. It causes them to pause. It is disruptive, but in a good way.
Yeah. So I think one of the big takeaways that I want you to consider from what we've discussed so far is there's a myriad of different types of ads that you can run. And so don't hold one type of ad up as the gold standard and say, well, they said not to do a service ad, so I'm not going to do a service ad. And they said to do an event ad, so I'm going to do that. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is there needs to be a conversation, and there needs to be an intentionality of how is this going to add value to the person who's going to receive it. But if you're looking for a little bit more guidance than that, one of the principles that I abide by when I'm creating Facebook ads is I want to solve a problem for somebody within 5 minutes. I want to give them a win. I want to satisfy or fulfill a need within 5 minutes. Sometimes that satisfaction just comes from having downloaded the resource and folks feel like, okay, I've done my part. I have the results I want. But a lot of times it will be answering some sort of a big question they've got, but in a short period of time. If you're looking for suggestions on what some of these might be, you ought to head over to frontdoor.church, because we have a wide collection of different quick wins that people can have related to their faith, spirituality, and Jesus, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that's the big takeaway is they can look all different, but try and deliver a win within 5 minutes. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about the mailer, and here is the fact about the mailer. If you spend $10,000 to do a mailer in your area, and you get 2 people show you that mailer, each of those visitors costs $5,000. Now, obviously, every person matters, and that's not the point that we're trying to make, is that's, to put a price tag on it. That's not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say, how are we diligent in stewarding the funds that we're allocating towards reaching lost people or reaching people in the community who are unchurched? So If you get 2 responses, that's $5,000 per mailer. You can be a whole lot more effective than $5,000 per visitor. Now, if you get 10 and you spent $10,000, that's $1,000. You can still be more effective than that. Inside of Facebook, what you wind up having is not only do you get more people seeing your mailer, but it's a digital mailer, but you're also able to do things like capture email addresses. Now, why would it be helpful to start capturing email addresses from people in the surrounding area in exchange for maybe these quick solutions?
Well, I think the clearest way is you can follow up with them. Let's say they download a community resource. You can actually tag them when they come in. And so now in your database, everyone that downloaded this particular resource has this particular tag. And you can actually create a broadcast email. You want to send out an email just to these people on your email list. And it's under the context of, hey, you downloaded this community guide. Are you new to the community? You know, how can our church serve you? Maybe it's just short and sweet like that. And you might be surprised by some of the responses of people. Yeah, we moved in the area, haven't really found a church yet. That's a great opportunity there. You wouldn't be able to have that opportunity if you didn't have that tagging and those systems in place to do that.
Yeah. So one of the great things about email marketing is that it allows you not only to follow up specifically with people, but it allows you to follow up with everybody, either all at the same time or with individual pockets. At any point in time, Facebook can change the rules of the algorithm. At any point in time, Instagram can decide that your content is no longer appropriate, and they can ban you for any reason that they deem fit. And so what winds up happening is you invest all of this time, effort, and money into building up your social presence, where at the snap of a finger, a decision can be made and you're gone. And we were joking around yesterday that like you wind up building your house literally on rented sand.
Yeah.
Not even your property.
No. Yeah, and they've incentivized us to do so, right? They've boosted, the algorithm is created in a certain way that people react to it. And we've been incentivized to create profiles and to join TikTok and highlight your church on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and do all these things. And then all of a sudden we've built this house on someone else's property. And now it's for free, right? For the most part, unless you pay ads, they've allowed you to build your house on their property for free. And now they're coming to collect rent. And they're saying, pay up. We're throttling your reach unless you pay ads, or you've said something, or your church is a part of some denomination that we have said is disparaging, or we disagree with them. So we are banning all churches. And I'm making an extreme case here, but now you're making an extreme case.
Let's just take the current climate and put that off to the side. There could be any number of reasons that you get banned, legitimate or illegitimate, and you really don't have much recourse.
You have no control. You can request a review, and you're probably going to get an automated review from an AI computer, and it's going to deny you. And then you're like left out in the cold, going, "Man, we just spent 9 years building our church's our Facebook page, and now it's gone, and I don't know what to do." And so, getting people's email as you're creating these Facebook ads and you're offering resources in exchange for an email, that's a reciprocal relationship there. Now you have a database, and you have something that has value that is on your lane. You own this email list, right? And you can send things to their inbox. And that's a much safer and a longer play than just relying on social media alone. So it's important. I know we're going to talk about email in one of the future episodes, but that's one of the reasons why you want to be collecting email addresses along the way, so that you can build a house not on sand, like Jesus said, right? But on a great foundation.
Preach.
There it is.
Preach. One of my buddies, Mike Kim, said, you can either wait for attention or you can pay for attention. And so the idea here is to designate some budget to pay for attention, but you have to make sure that it's attention worthy. What you're putting out there is attention worthy. A couple little minor things that I want to mention is if you decide that you are going to get into the Facebook ads arena, you don't want to have a Facebook page or Instagram or whatever platform you're going to look at. You don't want to have a page that's a ghost town. So you don't want to start running ads, but the last post that you made on your Facebook page was from 2018. When they show up, it's not going to look good that, hey, we're saying that this is a real place, yet there's not anything really happening right now. So you want to just add a little bit of content to your Facebook page just for the purpose of showing them the vibe of your church, verifying that you're a real place and that you're still active.
We
that
just want people to see that things are happening.
Yeah. This is where you can show people the things that are happening because they'll click on your profile, they'll look a little bit more, and then maybe they'll hop over to your website at that point. But you do need to have a little bit of activity happening on your Facebook page. And one of the things that you can also do is you can experiment on what types of posts are going to be good to run as an ad by posting originally on your page, giving a little bit more intentionality. And then if it seems like that post is doing okay, you can add $5 or $10 to boost it. And if it winds up doing really well, then you can take that ad set and you can take that creative and you can turn it into maybe a bigger, grander ad. But it's going to take some reps. It's going to take some time. If you expect for it to start converting right away, it's an unreal expectation. And I don't want you to put that pressure on yourself. I want you to realize that, hey, it's going to require you getting better at it aggressively over time. And we're here to help with that. So if you want to reach out to us about maybe some additional best practices for Facebook ads or some clarifying questions, you can go to frontdoor.church. You can find all of our information there. You can reach out to Justin and I. We'll be happy to converse with you and get you the information that you need. If you're looking for ideas on what type of ads you can run, frontdoor.church is going to have a bunch of suggestions. If you decide you want to sign up for a free trial, you can begin running ads to a page within 5 to 10 minutes and seeing the effectiveness of it. But overall, I want you to know that Facebook ads are just another tool for you to begin adding value and developing a relationship. It gets you in front of them more quickly. But when you get in front of them, you want it to be something that meets their need. So it opens up the door to relationship. Anything else you want to say before we call it quits?
No, I said it earlier and I'll say it again. When it comes to marketing, don't just preach the gospel, be the gospel with your ads, be the good news, add value to people. And eventually that's going to lead to them joining a worship service, attending with their family, perhaps, joining a small group and going from there. So
thanks for listening to episode 2 of the Front Door Church podcast. It's a lot of fun to get together and just chit chat about church communications, whether you're a pastor or you're a communications director. Being in the room with you is a lot of fun for us. And we really are grateful that you spent a little bit of time with us today. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify,
that's a new one.
There's a new one right there. Spotify. Please leave a review and a rating. Let us know what you appreciate and if there's anything you'd like for us to talk about in future episodes. That would really mean a lot to us. And no matter where you're listening, all of the places, Pandora, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, they've all got their own now. Wherever you're listening, go ahead, subscribe and follow. And our next episode is going to be all about email marketing. So we'll build on this Facebook conversation, and you will be one of the first to know about it. Peace out. Thanks, everyone.